Welcome to Pasquarello's kitchen. We're gonna bake some Italian bread today. And it's a great thing to do, especially nowadays when we're stuck at home. All you need is 4 cups of flour. You can use bread flour or just all-purpose flour. Try to make it unbleached. And here we go. You get your flour in your mixing bowl. You need 1.5 teaspoons of salt into the flour. And the reason why we're using 1.5 teaspoons is because that's 1/2 of the amount of yeast that we're going to use. That's the key to good Italian bread. Half of the amount of salt to the yeast. So it's a 2-to-1 ratio, yeast to salt. Okay, next we're going to mix that with a couple of fingers here and make a canyon in the bowl. To put our liquid into. All right, you can use warm water or warm tea. I'm using some warm green tea, and warm enough so that you don't burn yourself when you put your finger in, but it's got to be warm, can't be cold, and it can't be boiling, it'll kill the yeast. So you pour that in to your canyon. Now we add our yeast. We've already added the salt to the flour. We sprinkle 1 tablespoon of yeast. We don't need sugar in this recipe because there's enough sugar in the flour for the yeast to feed on. Take a fork, stir up that yeast into your liquid for a few seconds. We're gonna add a couple of, about 1.5 ounces of olive oil, okay, around onto the flour. And I'm gonna save what's left in this bowl. I'll show you why later when we put it in the oven. Okay, now here's another Pasquarello secret. You only need 2 or 3 fingers on one hand to get this done. So we start by moving in a circular motion the flour, the dry flour, into the water, bit by bit. You can see what I'm doing here. Twirl. Circular motion. Get all that flour into the liquid. And if we measured right, we're not going to need to add any more liquid or flour. Just a little flour to help us knead the dough. And that's a special part of this process. Okay. I have a professional camera person who's doing a great job for me, and I hope you can see what's going on in here. I've only used 2 or 3 fingers to do that. Now I can use 2 hands and start kneading. And it's okay if you get a little flour on yourself. Get a little dirty, have some fun. And you should have music on too. That makes people smile. Dough is always better when it's made with music on and the chef is smiling. Smiling, remember that. Okay, so I'm gonna clean the sticky dough off my fingers. I'm gonna add just a little, sprinkle a little on like this, so it doesn't stick to the bowl. And you don't need to knead this very much. K-N-E-A-D, knead. You want to be kind of gentle with it. If you beat it up too much, it won't rise up the way you want it to. Okay, so that took about no more than a couple of minutes. You see how easy it is? And we're just about done. So that's about it. Here's your bread dough, Italian bread dough. And it should feel nice and soft, like a baby's bottom. Make it into a ball. You're about ready to just leave it alone. You could spray a little Pam in here, or If you don't have that, just sprinkle a little flour in the bottom of your bowl. Let it sit there. Cover it. You could cover it with saran wrap or just a cloth. And let it sit for 1 hour. And we'll see you back in an hour for the next step. Bye. Okay, it's been 1 hour and the dough is doubled in size, just about. So we don't need to knead it again. We just need to maybe knock it down a little bit and shape it to whatever form you want. You can put it into whatever size bread pan you want, or you could lay it out on a bread stone. I'm gonna shape this into a long style of Italian bread loaf, and I've made a special pan that I'm gonna put it on. I'm just forming it to the shape that I want, and you can do this again in a regular bread pan, or put it on a stone and keep it kind of circular. What you want to do is, here's what I've done. I've taken a couple of cake pan bottoms, and to make a long loaf, whether it's a regular bread pan or this or whatever, or the stone, put a little cornmeal on the bottom. You don't need any oil, just cornmeal. That'll keep it from sticking. I've kind of shaped this and twisted it a little bit, and I'm gonna lay it out on my form, and we're gonna cover it up and let it rest, let it rise up for about another hour, maybe an hour and a half, and then we're gonna start cooking. I can already smell it. Okay, see ya. Okay, it's been an hour. Here's our Italian loaf of bread from Pasquarello's kitchen, and we're gonna do a couple things before we put it into the preheated oven, which is at 500 degrees. Once it's in the oven, we're gonna turn it down to 450 and cook it for about 25 minutes total. We're also gonna add to the oven, this is a cup of boiling water. This is another Pasquarello secret. We put it in the oven with the bread, and the steam from the water helps it get nice and even more crusty. So before we go in, we're gonna score it with a sharp knife. Just make a couple of cuts scoring the bread so it can expand properly in the oven. Just a couple of little slices. And do you remember the olive oil that we left in the bowl here? You can use a brush, or we can go back to 2 or 3 fingers. Get that leftover oil, rub it on the top of the bread. Add some nice flavor and a golden color when we cook it. And into the oven we go. We'll be back in about 25 minutes. Okay, total bake time, 25 minutes. Remember, we preheated the oven to 500 degrees, put the bread in for 5 minutes at 500, then we turned the oven down to 450 for another 20 minutes. So 25 minutes, we're done. We've let it rest here for about 5 minutes. Still hot, but it's cooled down enough for me to pick it up and show you this beautiful loaf of bread. Benissimo. That's really good in Italian. So, smells delicious. You can rip off a piece, you could make a giant sub, you could feed a whole family or a bunch of your friends. Let's cut a piece off. Beautiful Italian bread. Delicious. So, be healthy, stay healthy, be happy, keep smiling, and bake bread. That's it from Pasquarello's kitchen. Bye-bye.